Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for an on-demand webinar focused on getting business impact from Azure OpenAI. I'm Michaela, and I lead our marketing and partnerships for Applied Information Sciences, AIS for short. Today, we're sharing 15 use cases for generative AI that cut across industries and business functions. A few things that you'll take away from today's session are that there are a lot of applications for generative AI that hold real value to your organization, going beyond theoretical use cases. There's some necessary considerations for getting started. We're going to hit the big ones, and hopefully, this gives you some ideas on how you can bring back to your teams ways to get started with this new technology. We also know that the right partner and use case can make a big difference in your early experience with this emerging technology, and then how the adoption is embraced within your business group or broader organization. So we'll give you a little bit of background on our team and experiences, as well as what different capabilities we can offer throughout the way. Alrighty, a quick look at our outline for today's conversation, starting with a brief introduction to the AIS team. We'll then have Drew Hartley, one of our managing directors, speak to a few examples of generative AI in practice with use cases within insurance and healthcare. We'll also talk about a topic that can be valuable to any organization, and that's data quality. Next, Warren Seeger, Chief Technologist here at AIS, will give us some helpful guidance on key considerations, pulling from experiences in customers we're supporting today with their generative AI efforts. We'll close this out with some ideas on how you can get started and support that we can provide through different offerings and potential funding. All right, so with that, I'll give you a little bit of background about who we are and basically why we're qualified to talk about generative AI, because I know there's a lot of excitement in this space and a lot of people talking about, different offerings and products and capabilities that they have. First off, we're not new to the space. We've been doing IT consulting for over 4 decades. We've been working with Microsoft Technology since their partner channel existed in 1994. We've also been working really, really closely with their product teams in the cloud since Azure became a thing. We were working with Project Red Dog before Azure's first official release back in 2008. We've been really nurturing those product team relationships, helping to shape and inform their roadmap ever since. And this depth and breadth of experience is really important for organizations of all sizes. They're getting started with adopting various Azure services across their organization. We're also early access to Azure OpenAI services. We started getting some experience with this in late 2022. Our relationships and partnership with Microsoft has given us this affordance of early experience, which has been really helpful in understanding the applications, the limitations, and really how our customers can get the most from this technology. And I know that generative AI has been, the latest and greatest, and there's a lot of activity around it. But really, we've been working with AI and machine learning services for quite some time. And so we've been finding ourselves having conversations that have been spurred by the excitement of generative AI applications. And we may find that other cognitive services that Microsoft offers may be a better fit. So this foundational experience here is it's really helpful, as we found with our customers exploring some of these different opportunities to leverage this technology. Last one here I'll hit on is potential funding. So with our various partner designations, advanced specializations, some of the certifications and experience we have, we're actually one of the first 6 partners to get access to all available AI funding for our customers. So we may have something available to you to support your early experiences with testing out, piloting, or adopting this technology, so we can help you figure out if you qualify for some of those programs. Last slide here on AIS is a little bit about our key capabilities and our industry solutions. So we're helping organizations from end to end with this technology. We're not just doing one piece of the puzzle. Adopting something like this, your organization has to be comfortable with. So getting a COE in place, a center of excellence in place, and ensuring the administration, the governance and security aspects are all covered is a huge part of organizations really being able to embrace this. But we can also help with the engineering. So whether you need the the actual engineering side, architectural design, some of the different models and stuff, adopting responsible AI practices, we can help with both sides of that. And we're not just helping our customers here too. We're developing this for ourselves. So we are generating some IP and some internal research and development to be able to really test this in practice beyond some of the experiences we're having with our customers. So we're building a suite of different reusable code assets, tools, and patterns, and really best practices we're shaping to help our customers go faster, and being able to experiment with this a little bit further. And then the industry solutions. We've got a number of different demonstrations or tools that Drew will walk through and some of these different use cases that we'll explore today. But we are 50-50 commercial and federal. So we've got experience across a range of commercial and federal, mostly regulated industry organizations. So we understand the complexities of security and compliance and the regulations these organizations need to adhere to, particularly when engaging with such an emerging and new technology like this, all the things that we need to consider going into that. So, all right, with that, I'll pass it off to Drew, who's going to talk about some more of the exciting things, but wanted to give you that background, and he's going to talk about some of these use cases. So, Drew, off to you.
Thank you, Michaela. Generative AI has certainly captured the public zeitgeist and has littered headlines since ChatGPT was released to the public late in 2022. And it sounds like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but what do enterprises actually build with it? Over the next few slides, I'll walk you through a variety of common use cases we're hearing from, discussing with, and building with our customers. My goal is to provide real-world examples that help you think through practical ideas for your organization, even if you're not part of the industries that we discuss. Before we get into those real-world examples, though, I think it's important to discuss the core capabilities, or what I like to call superpowers, that generative AI technology brings to the table for use cases to leverage to ultimately achieve the desired business outcomes. Generative AI is not the solution to everything, but the things that it does best are truly game-changing. The capabilities ultimately roll up to create what I think is the best descriptive name for the technology, a reasoning engine. Then the best use cases that are applied are the ones that use this technology to reason things out. And then when they combine the capabilities on the screen together, the impact can be really profound. As I go through the example use cases on the next slide, you'll see which capabilities are being used in each one. I'm going to walk through 3 areas of use cases. The first 2, insurance and healthcare, are obviously industry specific, but the use cases can be relevant with slight adjustments in other industries too. And then the third area we'll focus on, data quality, is a more broad topic and is industry agnostic and can be applied to anyone. In each section, I'll highlight 4 use cases at a high level, and then we'll walk through one use case in each section more deeply to help you see the technology in action. All right, here are the 4 insurance use cases we're going to quickly review. The first is a customer retention copilot for agents. When customers call to cancel an insurance policy, it is an opportune moment for insurance companies to try to save or retain that customer. Empowering your agents to have a holistic understanding of that customer, what the recent customer interactions have been, and even to suggest questions to the agent to capture from the customer and make sure that they fully understand what's going on. The generative AI can then conduct a policy and coverage review and then ultimately suggest retention actions that might be able to retain that customer. It can also share information like company value differentiators and arm that agent to be able to save that customer. The second is using generative AI for fraud analysis and detection. Fraud is a huge challenge in the insurance industry. And so generative AI can help conduct anomaly detection on large amounts of internal, external data, structured, unstructured, and it can make sense of that information. It can do image analysis for altered images. It can do image, text, conversation analysis for contradictory information coming from customers. And then internally, it can create synthetic data that can be used for internal testing and model training. Third is to create an application review copilot for underwriters. Underwriters, depending on the product, can have an enormous amount of content that they have to sift through when making an underwriting decision. Generative AI can take that large amount of data summarize it, highlight key factors, and provide risk analysis for the underwriter to consider. It can aggregate relevant information from the submitted information, but also disparate sources and pull all that together. And it can highlight key steps, processes, and other points to consider. And ultimately, it can provide a recommendation, to that underwriter and an explanation of why. The underwriter is ultimately responsible for making that decision. But this technology can arm them to make highly efficient and effective decisions. And the final use case in insurance on this slide is to provide a concierge claim reporting copilot for customers. The insurance industry has been trying to help customers submit claim information via self-service channels for a while, but oftentimes customers want to be able to communicate with a person to feel like they get to share their full side of the story. Using generative AI, you can now capture the full story from a customer in natural language so that the customer can communicate how they want rather than being stuck to a form with discrete fields. The Copilot can ask intelligent follow-up questions, and the customer can share information in any format, text, image, audio. You can do this via any channel, mobile, web, or IVR. And then ultimately that unstructured data can be structured, reviewed with the customer, and then ultimately submitted into the claim center. Now let's review a specific insurance use case in depth, a claim adjuster copilot. The Claim Adjuster Copilot is a solution that we built for insurance companies. I'm going to show you a video of the Copilot in action and talk you through what's going on. For context, the Claim Adjuster Copilot supplies every adjuster with guidance and support through a dedicated claim assistant. The Copilot has access to all relevant information from across company systems and has been instructed to only answer in helpful, professional, and appropriate ways for claim questions only. With that, let's take a look at the Copilot. Copilot is available in the bottom right of the screen. See the adjuster opens it up and then expands it. The adjuster is going to type in a question to receive a short bulleted summary of the claim. And the adjuster manages many claims, and so to get started on this one, it just asks for a summary to be refreshed. The Copilot, again, is sourcing content from a variety of systems to bring it all together to be able to give a holistic summary. Now that there's a summary, the adjuster has to get started with the task at hand, which is to make a liability decision on this claim. This claim is actually complicated and that it has split liability, and but many states do not allow split liability. So the Copilot comes back with an explanation and assessment of the claim, and ultimately down here you can see it actually suggests a fault percentage, 70% for Mr. Smith and 30% for Ms. Johnson. The Copilot is contextually aware of the claim, the details of the claim, the state, the applicable laws, to be able to make sure that the recommended suggestion is actually appropriate. Now, the adjuster is empowered to be able to make a faster, more efficient, and better, higher quality decision with this technology at their side. Let's now move on to healthcare. Here are the 4 healthcare use cases we're going to quickly review. The first use case is auto-generation of clinical documentation. Generative AI can be used to create initial draft summaries of notes from available information across systems. You can do this for documentation scenarios or request scenarios, allow a clinician to review, edit, accept, and send or submit. The second use case is using generative AI as an ambient digital scribe. Generative AI can capture in-person or phone audio and convert that to text, and then extract and summarize relevant information from that text for clinician review and approval before being stored in a system. That information can also be provided to other appropriate staff based off their responsibilities and authorization to see content. The third use case is using generative AI to create personalized outbound patient messaging. Generative AI can create simple, clear, and understandable language with minimal medical jargon for patients to easily understand. Generative AI can generate outbound messaging for patients based on their unique situation. And this can be done across a variety of use cases, from medication reminders to post-care follow-ups and more. The fourth use case is using generative AI to detect at-risk patients. Generative AI can use holistic data and unique patient context to identify at-risk patients. It can then notify and escalate to appropriate medical personnel whenever an anomalous event occurs. And then it can also provide proactive recommendations to patients based on their specific data. Now let's review a specific healthcare use case in depth, a healthcare notes summarization copilot. The Notes Summarization Copilot is a prototype that we built for healthcare organizations to brainstorm the art of the possible and accelerate the delivery of healthcare use cases. I'm going to show you a video of this capability in action and talk you through what's going on. The Copilot has access to all relevant information from across various clinical systems and has been instructed to only answer in helpful, professional, and appropriate ways to help enable care coordination. It politely declines requests outside of the scope and has been instructed to not provide any real or perceived medical advice based on the information the Copilot has available. With that, let's take a look. So this Copilot, you can see, is in the bottom right where there's an icon that can be clicked on to open it up, so it's there when you need it. It can then be expanded to make interactions a little easier. And then the care navigator or healthcare employee can then ask questions. So they've asked here for a summary of the patient, and they get a holistic summary of what's going on. They can ask for a list of past visits so they can see exactly what the patient has done. They can see a list of providers that the patient's been referred to. And you can also ask it about prior blood work information. For this patient who's a diabetes patient, you can see their last A1C measurement. So this notes summarization copilot is extremely powerful. It's able to take a lot of content and make it super easy for a healthcare employee. Now onto our last set of use cases pertaining to data quality. Here are the 4 use cases we're going to quickly review. The first is conducting organizational content analysis. This could be a public website, published documentation, or internal information. Generative AI can scan for discrepancies or inaccuracies, inconsistencies, things that look wrong. It can also scan for improvement opportunities. The generative AI can then come back with recommendations and actions to take to improve that content. This is a tedious task for individuals to do. Organizations create a lot of content. Using generative AI and its ability to work through that amount of content quickly is extremely powerful. The second is an internal use case, and it's around testing and training data creation. It can create diverse and representative sample data for internal testing processes to ensure that maybe less frequent scenarios can be captured early and found and fixed. And second, it can be used for internal training as well. It can mock, scrub, or create data that is very relevant, very specific to the appropriate contexts, but diverse and unique. The third use case is around creating synthetic training data for machine learning models. It can take a representative sample and then it can expand it to be diverse, balanced, and high quality to ensure that the model is ultimately trained with a large enough sample. After that, it can then be used to create data to test the model after deployment, ensure that it's working as expected, and be used in the rest of the model deployment process. And fourth is just general data analysis. Generative AI can identify suspicious data across data sources that's worth investigating. It can find missing data. It can also find information that's very relevant and highlight it. It can summarize trends or call out anomalies. There are different types of data as well. It can review employee performance and provide coaching, which is just one kind of data at the end of the day. It can also do that for process analysis and provide improvement recommendations to processes. All these scenarios are different forms of data that generative AI is able to understand, analyze, and help improve. With that, let's discuss a specific data quality use case. This one is around inaccurate healthcare provider directories. It's obviously healthcare related, but you can see how this can be applied to any industry. When patients need new care, they will often search a provider directory through their health insurance company, like the one on the slide. Many of us have probably done that. Unfortunately, the provider information can change frequently, and the information can be inaccurate in these directories. This can cause confusion and waste patients' time, or in a worst case scenario, patients can be left with unexpected costs because they went to an out-of-network provider that they thought was in-network. To ensure patients get the accurate information they need, the federal government, through the No Surprises Act, actually requires health insurance companies to update their directory at least every 90 days. But keeping these directories up to date is a tedious and manually intensive task as provider information changes very frequently, and current solutions are brittle and easily break. Given the number of providers a health insurer is tracking at any time, this can easily cost millions of dollars per year to monitor and update. So how can generative AI help? First, you can build a flexible solution with it. Generative AI can understand your intent through natural language processing. So you don't have to define every minute step in every data field. You just tell the model what you want it to do, and it's able to understand. Second, it can make sense of unstructured data. Generative AI can take unstructured data from disparate sources of information, turn it into structured data that can ultimately be analyzed, compared, and then the third step is that the generative AI models can actually take action now. They can make intelligent updates. They can determine the best action and automatically submit update requests. So that's high level on how this works. We're going to step through now a few slides that actually shows an example on how it works. First step is to retrieve the unstructured text. In this case, we have a current directory. We're going to source from Microsoft Bing and WebMD Care. The generative AI model is going to convert that unstructured text from that web search into structured JSON. And if you look at the actual data that was retrieved from these three sources, you can actually see there are 3 different addresses and 3 different phone numbers in this scenario. The next step is to tell the generative AI model what to do by describing our intent with instructions in natural language. You can read it on the screen, but in short, what we're telling it is to compare the records and then use a unique weighting factor by source to determine what needs to be updated. And so you can see WebMD is given the highest confidence level there, higher than Bing web search. And so here's the final output after the process has run. The model updated 3 fields in the directory in the database based on the intent we described in the prior prompt. It was able to understand what there were differences. As you saw, the address and the phone numbers was difference. And so was actually the hospital name. And then from it weighted WebMD with the highest confidence level. And so it made the updates based off that information. So as you can see, generative AI can provide a flexible solution here. It's less likely to break because that structure can change in Bing or WebMD. All right, there can be conflicts. There can be any number of scenarios that the model is able to be flexible enough to adapt to. And with that ends our discussion around specific use cases. I hope the use cases we reviewed give you some ideas on how you can use generative AI in your organization. There are literally endless opportunities to use generative AI right now, from big headliner use cases to lots of small yet extremely valuable use cases. The future that we're moving to will undoubtedly have generative AI use cases of all sizes, shapes, and purposes embedded across the technical stacks. One of our top recommendations to our partners is to get started today. If you're interested, we'd love to bring our expertise to your organization to help you define your strategy and then ultimately deliver production-ready models that drive real business value. With that, I'll now turn it over to Warren Steger to discuss key considerations when building generative AI solutions. Warren?
Thank you, Drew. So now we're going to talk about some key considerations that you'll want to think about as you begin your journey in adopting this super powerful generative AI technology that Drew's walked you through with the various use cases that he's discussed. What we're going to take a look at are kind of 4 main areas. The first area is risk management. These models bring a lot of power, they bring a lot of creativity, they bring a lot of ability to generate content. That must be considered in terms of how you're going to manage control, what you're doing with these models as you bring them into various solutions within your organization. So risk management is a key consideration and that you need to really think through as you begin that journey in adopting these models. The second area is related to that, it's governance. As you begin to build out solutions across your organization and the various business units, you'll want to have a way of managing the build out of those solutions, as well as how you're going to manage the change around the adoption of those solutions and the impact those solutions would have on your workforce. Third area is in the area of cost control. Here, what we're looking at is these generative AI models bring to them, particularly in the case of Azure OpenAI, a unique cost model that's made of different components than the typical service that you would see through Azure AI services. So we'll talk briefly about some of the key considerations there. And then last, related again back to governance and risk management, is the need to have change management throughout the rollout of this technology within your organization, making sure that you're understanding the impacts on the workers that are adopting it, setting up appropriate feedback loops to control issues that may come up during that adoption, and be able to effectively train people in terms of how to use the technology. So let's first focus on risk management. So in the area of risk management, there are four main topics that we wanted to think about. The first is in the area of data quality. When you think about how the generative AI models work, they're fundamentally taking in input, whether that's in the form of a series of prompts or of a knowledge repository that you've set up through retrieval augmentation generation. Fundamentally, they take in your data, and then based on the commands, and as you saw in the examples that Drew gave, some of the meta prompts that you can use to constrain how you want the model to work, they're going to generate content for you that's going to be based on the quality of the data that you're giving it. So making sure that the data that you're using when you're building out solutions in generative AI is both complete and accurate. Also, you have to think about any sort of biases or ethical considerations within the data. So you want to make sure that that data is good going into the model. Related to that is the area of data security, privacy, and compliance. Here you want to make sure that you've again put in the proper controls, that if you're in a regulated industry like insurance or healthcare, for example, that the information that you're producing out of these models is compliant with regulations such as HIPAA, for example, in the case of healthcare. A third area for risk management is to consider appropriate controls in the area of model response accuracy and validation. These models are very powerful. They understand intent, as again was illustrated in the use cases that Drew showed, but they can also be very creative in their responses, and the responses can vary widely in some cases to similar types of questions. So you have to, again, think about how you're going to manage the accuracy and constrain the models in their ability to be creative, and come up with appropriate controls that can help you validate the model output to ensure that you're getting the right information to the end user that's using the solution that you're building. The final area for risk management is around IP and legal protections. Similar to what you're looking at for data quality, here you want to make sure that you've got appropriate controls, that you're not bringing in any sort of intellectual property or copyright information in as your source data into the models. So these are the four main areas of risk management. Next, let's take a look at the data security, privacy, and compliance area of risk management. So in this case, what we want to highlight is, in particular, when you're using a solution like Azure OpenAI, that you get built-in privacy and security through the natural infrastructure that comes with deploying an Azure service in your Azure tenant. So you get scalable capabilities with the Azure cloud. You get role-based security as part of that solution. So all the information that you're going to use within that closed environment for your own particular private instance of a large language model that you'll deploy through the Azure OpenAI service is fully protected by the Azure infrastructure and security boundaries. And above and beyond that, when you're using Azure OpenAI service, you can rest assured that your interactions with that model are really truly stateless, in the sense that the prompts that you give it and the responses that it returns are not recorded and stored in the model. The data that you're sending back and forth between the model and your application is also encrypted in flight. And because you're dealing with a pre-trained model, your data is not being used to train the base model. It's only being used to train the solution and the output that you seek to generate with the particular application that you're using this generative AI technology in. The one area that is monitored externally by Microsoft is in the area of abuse monitoring. There are certain alerts that can be generated when it detects a case where the model has been given input that could be considered either hateful or violent or otherwise explicit. And it will generate alerts that will then trigger a review by Microsoft and alert you that this content has been given to the model or has been generated back from the model. Now, you can request that this service be disabled by Microsoft, so you can, in truth, get full protection of all your data within the self-contained environment of your Azure infrastructure. Another area in terms of risk management is the model accuracy and validation. As has been well advertised in many articles within the news media, these large language models are subject to not only hallucination and imagining or making up facts based on information that they're given, they can also regress in terms of their ability to answer questions that with accuracy can change over time. So you have to be constantly vigilant to make sure that you're looking out for these types of situations. And there are many techniques that you can use to address these issues. The first is in prompt engineering. Again, Drew showed you an example of some of the prompts that were used in the use cases. This is a key tool along with grounding that you can use to constrain the model output. So understanding and becoming very skilled at prompt engineering is a key component of your risk management practice. You can also employ a technique called model validation, where you can literally have one large language model generating the output that you're seeking for your application, and then having another model be used as a fact checker against that application or that generated output to make sure that it's aligned with what you expect in terms of the output. Finally, built into the models themselves are the areas of services, again, that Microsoft provides in terms of abuse monitoring that we mentioned earlier, but also content filtering, and then the ability to do what's known as set the model temperature, which can make the model range from being very creative and producing content that is useful for things where you want to generate ideas or thoughts or concepts for new items that you're thinking about, or you can set it to be very precise and give only very factual answers. So controlling the model temperature is a key component as well. And last, but certainly not least again, is when you're testing the solution that you're building with these models, it's important to really have a human verify, at least initially as you're rolling out the solution, but the accuracy of the solution and the responses from the model is in line with what you expect. Okay, now we're going to move to the area of governance. Again, this is another area where you want to really focus on how you're going to manage the rollout of this technology across your organization. In our experience, not only bringing new technologies like generative AI to market, but also initially with cloud technologies such as Microsoft Azure and Microsoft Power Platform, it's really important to consider the idea of forming what's known as a center of excellence, which is a group that you can stand up within your organization that should be cross-functional, that provides membership from not only the IT organization and the technologists that are working with the generative AI models, but also the business and legal and HR and other organizations that will help you manage compliance considerations and ethical considerations when you're building out these solutions, so that you have a team that's capable of providing a holistic management capability across the enterprise to make sure that you maintain both consistency and compliance with your generative AI solutions. The other key component of this center of excellence is not only should it be cross-functional, but it should be made up of team members that are truly hands-on so that they can actually build out recommendations and guidance and templates to support your rollout of these technologies from real-world experience. So it's not just something that's coming from an ivory tower type perspective. It's based on actual experience, lessons learned, feedback from actually using this technology in real world solutions. This next slide just shows you an example of one of the ways that we think about how the Center of Excellence should be structured to interact with the key other units of your organization. And I'll start by going up at the top of the diagram with the leadership group. The COE will be taking its direction from the strategy and overall approach that the leadership team has decided within your organization for what they want to achieve, both from a business and strategic viewpoint within the organization for adopting this technology. Using that, then the COE will interact with the other organizations such as HR, talent, and legal to again manage and build out policies that help guide the compliance considerations, that help manage cases to make sure that the models are being fair and balanced in their generating of output. The COE will also serve as a service provider to your staff and not only be able to help with training and development of the staff in learning about the generative AI technologies and Azure OpenAI technologies, but also providing a conduit for those team members to provide feedback and ideas for helping shape how the rollout of the technology continues to evolve throughout the organization. And then last, the COE, as both a guidance and a practitioner, will interact with the IT teams, building out solutions that are leveraging the large language models in Azure OpenAI and actively working to build out solutions and taking the lessons learned from those projects and refining the guidance and templates for building out future solutions. This slide just shows you some examples of the different roles that we typically would recommend for a COE. First and foremost, there should be an executive sponsor who's helping the COE implement the strategic vision of the leadership team, and then a leader who's helping to be that point of contact within the other business groups and the COE within the organization, and then a multidisciplinary team of product analysts, data scientists, data engineers, and other engineering disciplines such as security, cloud architecture, and DevOps, all working together in concert to really help define the guidance and the governance of the generative AI solutions across the organization. And then last but certainly not least, you would want to have an organizational change representative as part of this overall COE team to help you structure communications and outreach to the organizations as these generative AI solutions are rolled out across the enterprise. The last area in terms of governance that we want to mention is the responsible AI principles that Microsoft has developed over years of research in building out artificial intelligence solutions. And these 6 guiding principles that you see on the right side of the screen really are core to really helping you and helping the COE provide that governance capability. So when we think about the creation of content from these generative AI models, we always have to think about fairness, inclusiveness, and how those models are really providing the generated output from the various solutions that you're building. And then thinking about both reliability and safety and privacy and security, as well as being able to have full transparency and accountability for when you are seeing issues with the model that you can trace back to where were the sources of information that may have generated either incorrect output or other types of incorrect information from the model. So these are very key elements of your governance program. Next, we'll go to the third area, which is cost control. For costs, again, Azure OpenAI service has some unique characteristics when it comes to managing the cost of the models. First and foremost, it's a pay-as-you-go model, so you're only going to pay for what you use. So there's no notion of having to stand up, large infrastructure components to manage this service. It's simply a pay-as-you-go model. But then we get into some of the unique aspects of the cost, particularly when you're working with the large language models and you're prompting the models and providing input to the models. The prompts that you give and the output that you receive are kind of metered in the sense that they're broken up into discrete tokens, which are roughly about 4-character sets of information that or then each have a different cost structure depending on which large language model you're using. Um, and that becomes a consideration in terms of trading off kind of the performance of the model for the more advanced versions as a GPT-4 versus some of the earlier versions. There's different pricing structures based on the capability of the model. In addition, there's another area of cost. If you're using images, there can be costs around the number of images that you're using in interacting with the model. And if your solution includes the approach of using embeddings, which is creating numerical representations of the information that you're providing to the model, that the model can use to understand the intent or semantic meaning of that particular piece of information. There's additional token cost associated with that. And then finally, as you build out these applications that leverage the capabilities of the large language models, you're going to deploy Azure resources such as web apps or Azure functions. Those costs and that resource consumption must also be considered in your overall cost model. So the final area is now going to be in change management. So for change management, and we touched upon many of these concepts earlier when we went through risk management and uh, the governance models, but it's important to kind of restate these in terms of how you're going to roll out the technology across the organization. First and foremost, again, having alignment with executive leadership, making sure that there's a clear strategy and a clear value proposition defined for how you're going to leverage this technology, whether that's in the form of native applications or in the form that you're rolling out Microsoft 365 co-pilots to enhance the business operations of your organization. You need to make sure that you've got that strategy defined and that you understand how you're going to realize value from employing this technology. Also, change management needs to account for the fact that you're now going to be changing the workflow potentially of your staff and how they perform their daily functions. So being able to communicate the intent of the changes and understand the impacts and conducting assessments of what those changes are having on your staff is vitally important. Similarly, in making sure that the staff can perform the functions in using the new technology, there's going to be needs for training and making sure the staff is ready to adopt this new technology. And then finally, having the ability to establish those critical feedback loops, whether that be in the form of surveys or other means of communication, to make sure that you're actually achieving the goals that you intend and realizing the value proposition that you're seeking to gain with the efficiencies that you want to realize within your organization using generative AI technology. So that concludes this section on the overall key considerations. And now I'll turn it back over to Michaela, who will conclude with the next steps.
Awesome, Warren. And thank you for all that. It's clear that there's a lot to keep in mind as you're exploring the adoption of this. But as Drew spoke to, there's a lot of really exciting and really impactful applications of this technology. So just in terms of the next steps here and getting started, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've got several offers that are a great place to start. They're anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks, and in some cases, working with Microsoft and our counterparts there, we may be able to get you funding to support this. So whether you want to start with some strategy and envisioning workshops or understand what building out a data platform and OpenAI sort of pilot and proof of concept looks like over a period of 30 days. We can help you get started with the next steps there. We also have lots of different, just broader capabilities that we can pull together and design an engagement that works perfect, custom fit for you. So, if you're getting started with your vision and strategy and you want to kind of explore what that looks like, or you're looking for support in the engineering and architectural side of things, or you want help with some of those COE concepts that Warren spoke to, and then finally, the training, education, and enablement capabilities. These are all options that we can work with you on, and we'd love the opportunity to talk through what your goals are and how some of our capabilities, skills, and people can help best support you in your next steps here. One more thing that may help you in terms of staying up to speed on the latest capabilities, use cases, and examples of this is our Applied Gen AI video series. So we've been rolling out a mini series of videos that are more consumable than a long webinar and are just kind of bite-sized examples of some of the things to keep in mind. So follow us on LinkedIn. We're putting those out regularly. You'll get updates that way, and then we've also got a link on our website if you want to check them out there. Really appreciate you guys taking the time today to spend some time with us and understand some of these different use cases and things to keep in mind. If you want to learn more, check out our website. You can also contact us there, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.